Hello everyone, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about what my experience was like moving. And honestly, this was like my real first time move because when I went to college, I was still very, very close to my family. So, it wasn't really moving out, so to speak. So me going off to med school was really the first time that I actually had to move in my whole life to a new city, in a place where something happens to me or whatever, like my family is over 6.5 hours away. And so, it's definitely kind of a scary thing. And it's also something that it is challenging, but I feel like it does make you a better person. I feel like I'm able to adapt to new environments and to really kind of just literally broaden my horizon in terms of where can I go and what can I do, and how can I survive and be independent in new places. And so I'm going to make this video to talk about things that I learned moving out and away from my family, and what I would do differently, or basically all the stuff I did. And so yeah, so basically, once I knew that I was going to be moving to Pomona because I got accepted, that's when the first thing you do, if you, in terms of if you're completely new to this, you start looking for housing, and this can be apartments too. And so there's multiple ways of getting housing. You can rent rooms from families, you can go to apartments and talk to the property managers about if they have any vacancies. And sometimes the school itself will have their own housing options. So like UC Berkeley had their own dorms that you could just pay one thing to the campus and they would give you housing as well. And so in my case, after looking at the options, I figured that the apartment near campus would be the most value. It's not the cheapest. The cheapest options, if you're really trying to pinch pennies, are renting rooms and kind of getting in a group of people who are willing to, they want to rent a house. So you would split the bill however many ways there are people living in that same house. The reason I decided against doing that is, especially given my first year going to med school, like I didn't want to kind of have a bunch of unknowns in terms of my living situation. And what I mean by that is, I toured a bunch of rooms that I could have rented like directly from the homeowners. And they also do garages too. If you wanted a garage, they call them studios. But basically, the prices are pretty decent. I mean, you might save a couple $100 a month versus an apartment. And they are nice. Some of them have like pools and nice living rooms, and basically very homely, like pretty much exactly what you're used to if you're used to living in a home. The one caveat is that your roommates in those homes can literally be anybody. And I think a lot of times the homeowners, when they're renting out their rooms, like they don't really necessarily care too much about who's staying there. So you're gonna get people who are like, one of them is a professional, another one of them is some kind of art history major at a liberal arts school, and another person is someone in the pharmacy school, another person's a medical student. So it's like, you get a variety of people. And while that is cool, just given my tolerance personally for like how much I wanted to make sure like I knew what I was getting in a roommate, I cared a lot about making sure that like my roommate would also be a medical student. So I was able to connect with someone prior to the beginning of school, about a month before. And then I drove down to Pomona again while I was still living in the Bay Area, checked out the room and the apartment, and spoke with my potential roommate at the time, said like, looks pretty good, texted him pictures. And the rate was honestly pretty competitive for an apartment. We're paying $920 each for our share of the apartment. And the only utility that we have to worry about is electricity. So so we just signed the lease, and that is the way that it worked. So, and that was the logistics behind it. Was, you sign the lease, and then because this is a big property management company, they also require you to purchase renter's insurance, so that like if you're liable for any damage, you have insurance to literally cover up to 100,000 in damages that you potentially would do. And so like there's that type of stuff you had to work out. I was able to get something for $5 a month for renter's insurance. So that was a pretty good deal. And yeah, so basically a bunch of just paperwork. And if this is the first time you're doing it, like it was the first time for me, just tour a bunch of places, set aside some time. Fortunately, like I did the 7-hour road trip from the Bay Area to Pomona, and just check the place out in person. Like I think it's pretty weird to do it virtually, and I don't think you really get much out of it if you're just like doing a video calling thing. So yeah, just do like a in-person thing and make sure like you get along with people, and the homeowner, the property manager, and yeah, so once you do all that stuff, it's basically just moving. And in my case, I have a little car that was like able to fit full of just stuff, and that thing nearly bottomed out on the suspension, and I had to drive it like that for I think it was over 400 miles. So that was interesting, but we made it in one piece, and the car is okay. And yeah, so that kind of was the experience. And it's honestly, you just kind of get used to it. It's different living in an apartment than it is living in a house, because there's just like there's shared laundry rooms, there's shared trash rooms, so and mail room with your little key for your own little post PO box basically. And so just little things like that. And just obviously, like if you're used to having a garage like I was, like you're gonna lose that, which is really a bummer for me personally. And you just kind of get used to it. It's less real estate, but at the same time, it is what it is. The other thing I would say is, like in my case, like I literally have like just in one room I have my bed and the desk where I like do all the work, and it kind of sucks because like I don't like having to work and then sleep in the same room. It makes it feel like a prison. And so it's kind of like, that's ideally you could separate where you do your work from where you're sleeping. But it is what it is. Decent living room, all sort of stuff. It'll depend on wherever you end up going, but yeah, that was the experience. And it's if I ever do it again, it'll be easier because I'll always know what I'm kind of doing, and understand these things. Read those leases before you sign them too, because they are legally binding contracts, and usually there's some kind of down payment, and they use that as a security deposit. So it's like, if you're someone who says like, oh, I totally want it, I'm totally gonna come here, and then you put down your security deposit and you never show up, they keep your money. And then also they keep the money the whole time while you're there, so that like when you move out, if there's damage or it's dirty or whatever, like whatever services they have to pay for to clean it up or fix it, like they take that out of your deposit. So just a bunch of little things like that that are new for me to just kind of get used to. But yeah, so that's about it. So I hope this is it's kind of mostly just boring logistics stuff that I think people can figure out. It's just a lot of work and phone calls and in-person visits if you get the chance, and I highly recommend actually visiting in person before you commit to anything. And just make sure like you're able to afford the rent, obviously, like have some kind of income or savings to the point at which like you can at least pay for rent for a good few more months out. Yeah, so hope this is helpful, and thank you all for watching.